Is the frequency in use? Is the frequency in use? Nothing heard. It looks like it's time for the long wire.
Good afternoon, or I guess evening, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Alan.
My name's Chris, KE0JHC.
Oh man, it's thunderstorming here, a little bit anyway. So, we may drop out unexpectedly. We'll see. Hopefully not, but you never know. So I know I say this every time. We probably should stick to an hour, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, we'll try and keep it less than an hour.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah, so this is The Long Wire, episode number 6.
Has it been 6 already?
It has been 6. I had to go back and check because when I pulled up the stream, it still said episode 3, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I actually pulled it up in YouTube, and like, oh, wow, last one was number 5.
Man.
So, number 6.
Just think, we were talking about this for months before we decided to pull the trigger, so we're coming up on a year of
Yeah.
the initial discussions.
Yeah.
Man, we should do this.
I'm kind of surprised we're still doing it. I mean, I'm glad we're still doing it. I'm surprised that, you know, the subscriber count is going up. So, because I mean, let's be honest, the content I've put out thus far is pretty dry.
I mean, we do have some pretty interesting conversations here, but...
Yeah, it gets pretty interesting here, but the stuff on the main channel is just programming. So, of commercial gear.
There's people that need it, though. I know.
There is.
Like we've said before that when we got into commercial stuff, that there was no information out there on it, so we all had to learn ourselves, and it was not fun.
It was not fun. It was not fun. So, I got, I think, one more video to do on the XTSs. It's going to be the HDC 1200. And then after that, I think we're going to be in the XPR.
Ooh, nice.
7550. I know that, you know, they got the 7550E out, but I don't have the E. I have the older one. They program the same.
Right.
So, but
yeah, I do not have an XPR.
I'm thinking get through the basic programming of, you know, I've got this XPR. We'll probably go through the Harris Momentum / Hytera, and then
Okay.
I'll probably do the Harris M7100. That might be it for programming for a while, you know, unless I get like an XTS 3000 or
I got one sitting on my desk here that is not being used, so you may just end up with one.
Sweet. Oh man.
Do you still run a 7100 in your vehicle?
No, I have the XTL 2500 in my truck.
Oh, that's right.
So it's a bit of a.
No,
you
used to run it in the burb. I know that.
Yeah. So the XTL is a bit of a double-edged sword. I think it's a better radio than the M7100 is, but I can't run my dual RF deck like I could with the M7100. And that for me is you know, for a ham, that's a pretty decent problem because it's nice being able to run dual band.
Yeah.
And the M7100 just did it seamlessly.
Yeah.
Whereas.
Yeah, and that's the thing with commercial gear is there is no dual band commercial gear. It's all your VHF or your UHF.
It's exceedingly rare to find stuff that does dual band. I think Kenwood will do it. Well, the XTL will do it, but you have to have the special firmware that Mother Moto produced only for the feds. So, and then it only works with the handheld control unit. It doesn't work with the regular, like the M5 or the M0.
Okay.
So, the APX, and I think they did that because APX was on the horizon at the time, and APX just does dual band natively in one deck.
Oh,
So
okay.
well, I guess technically tri-band because it'll do VHF, it'll do UHF, R1 and R2, and then it'll do 7 and 800.
That's right.
So, which means the antennas are stupid expensive. But what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in that case, it really is going to work seamlessly.
Yeah, except you're talking about 20 to 30 grand.
Yep. Yes. Yes, you are.
I guess I probably shouldn't have dropped the price on that, but
I
yeah, if there's any hams out there looking to do that, yeah, it's a lot of money.
I still have on my wish list the APX 8000. You know, like the end all be all portables, and naturally it's got to be in firefighter yellow.
Of course, you can't not get firefighter yellow if you're going to buy a brand new radio.
Right. Exactly.
There's no point.
Right.
What did you ever end up doing with that? What was that portable you had a while back? Was that a?
That was a Harris.
Harris. Yeah.
Harris Unity. So that was VHF and UHF. It was only dual band VHF and UHF. No, I take it back. That was tri-band.
I was gonna say, I thought that was.
Yeah.
I thought it had 800 on it.
Yeah,
too.
it did have 800. I ended up selling that.
Okay.
So I mean, it worked. It worked really, really well. The problem was, as with most Harris portables, it didn't feel like when you held it in your hand. It didn't feel like something that would survive if you dropped it.
Oh, yeah, and it's $1,000-some radio.
Right. You know, so I was just concerned about if I did drop it, it not surviving, and then there was going to be sad faces all around, and
yeah,
because I have a tendency to drop my radios, so
yeah, that's why you run an XTL or an XTS or a APX.
Right, because if you drop an APX or an XTS or something like that, you don't have to worry about the radio. You have to worry about whatever it landed on.
Right, you're gonna crack your concrete.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So the title of this episode is "Stop the Clickbait." I'm so sick of clickbait video titles for amateur
All the
radio
time.
YouTube. Well, I mean it's all over on YouTube, but it's gotten really bad for ham radio related YouTube channels as of late because of this. It's titled I'm going to read it because the title it's gold. Petition for rulemaking of the Shortwave Modernization Coalition. Yeah.
Do you have the link? Can you send that in chat or something? I want to see this.
Yeah. Let's let me copy this. Copy that. Let's enter it right here and go. All right. So the TLDR on this is there's a group of lawyers who are on behalf of this. I think it's Tower Research Capital LLC is one of them. Counsel for DRW Holdings. There's a few other ones in there. Basically, they want to park a bunch of high power shortwave stations right at the end of the 20-meter band. And which is so the entire amateur radio community is just losing their collective minds. I think it's the end of ham radio. Ham radio, as we know it, is gone. The world is coming to an end, etc. With a lot of the YouTube video titles I saw.
They are encroaching on our frequency usage.
Yeah. So the what's this guy's video? Let me get back to YouTube. W6LG is the YouTuber. The latest video he just put up was in regards to this. Actually, a pretty good video, but he was one of the ones that's kind of like the alarmist. It's the end of ham radio kind of stuff.
I've seen a couple of his videos.
I've talked to him on the air before. He's
Have you?
Yeah, he's super nice guy. And I guess when he's getting concerned, I guess I get a little concerned, but I don't know. So long as they stay within their band, I don't see the issue here. Although, I mean, it does point towards our little, Garden of Eden amateur radio slot that we have, the FCC has so graciously allowed us to use, is now under the microscope even more. Because the RF spectrum is especially these days becoming quite crowded.
Yes.
So, I guess so long as they stay in their band, it's not going to be a problem. But it points towards the changing of the times, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the first I'm really hearing about this is tonight, but I guess I can kind of see, just trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I could see the want for it to be close to the amateur band, hoping to pick up some of these amateurs that are scrolling through. And they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, let's sit and listen to this. What's this radio station?
Right.
Try and pick up a few more listeners. But yeah, I mean, like you said, as long as they stay within their band, and I mean, I really highly doubt that the ham radio band, 20 meters especially, is just going to get sold out. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
That's why everyone pays their ARRL memberships to fight that. But
Right. Yeah. The
But,
ARRL, that could be a whole other topic,
yeah,
I guess.
that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. Oh, let's see here. I wanted to see if they have a chart for what specific changes they're talking about. Oh, man. They really don't. But it looks like they kind of want to overhaul Part 90.
Modernization of Part 92 through 25 megahertz.
They keep saying 2 through 25 megahertz. Well, I mean, that's the amateur band's in there, so.
Yeah, that's basically most of it.
Right. Let's see. Let's see. 4.9 megahertz, 10.2, 14.9, 19.9, 24.8. I'm not a lawyer, so I mean, a guy'd have to really sit down and read this thing word for word to fully understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I guess time will tell.
Yeah, it'll be something interesting to follow.
I don't foresee amateur radio going away.
Oh no,
So-
not by any means.
It just means that amateur radio is going to have to advance, I guess. If they're going to have high-powered transmitters parked right next to the band, I guess our filters are going to have to get a little more intense. So,
Right. Kind of
but-
looks like they want to. They wanted to put a station in Chicago. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I saw that.
There's some maps down there, just of signal noise and
Yeah, I saw the signal
the
noise one.
different bands. Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna have to read into this for sure.
Yeah, it definitely points towards some changes. But I didn't see Part 97 brought up anywhere in here, though. I guess I haven't read this verbatim yet, but
Let's see. Part 97 is not even mentioned in that document.
oh, you just do a search?
Yeah. Part 90 is, but
Right. Well, I mean, so long as they're sticking to Part 90, that's fine.
right.
So Part 97 should be just fine. But I guess my main problem is everyone's putting up I shouldn't say everyone, But there's a lot of videos being put up on YouTube by other ham radio channels that just like, oh my God, it's the end of ham radio, and sell all your gear now while it's worth something, and
Right.
oh
Doom
man,
and gloom.
doom and gloom. And it's like, no, let's just relax for a second. You know, let's read the document. Let's understand what it actually means.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway, it's just something that's frustrating. Speaking of Part 90 and Part 97, so I've been doing a lot of these videos on programming Part 90 equipment.
Yes.
And I actually think this question got posed once in one of the videos about using a piece of Part 97 equipment for Part 90 usage, like in a business situation.
Yeah.
The short answer is no, you can't do that legally, anyway.
Right. So that would be your Bofangs.
Right.
That you see in all the movies now, where the cops are using
Oh my God,
Bofangs. Yes. Yeah. That's not real life.
Right. I mean, the closest thing I saw radio usage being in a movie is the movie Bright with Will Smith.
Okay.
I would not watch it with children in the house, much less in the same room.
Yeah.
I feel like they use the F-bomb just to use it in some scenes, because, I mean, it's a lot.
They've got to use it every sentence.
Every sentence. Yeah, it's rough. But he's got an XTL 5000
Ooh,
in
nice.
the 800 band, because it's got the really short antenna on it.
Okay.
And he uses it the same way. I've seen so many officers use it, and because he's holding it upside down, and he picks it up with the antenna facing his body. So it's like, yep,
Yeah.
that's how they use it.
That's real life.
Yeah.
You did your homework and
Yeah.
did it right along with the cop.
Yeah.
Good job.
Oh man. But yeah, so you can't be using Bofangs or Yaesus or things like that. And for the most part, the Yaesus you can't even program to run in Part 90 bands.
Right.
But the Bofangs you can technically program to do it, but you should not. It is technically illegal.
Yeah. So and then that's the same with like, let's see, Part 95. Part 95 is personal radio services. So that's your FRS, GMRS. I think CB is covered under that.
And
what else
I
is?
would like to point out that technically using a Part 90 radio, like the XTSs and the XTLs and stuff like that, for Part 95 is also illegal.
Yes, it is. In Part 95, I had it up earlier today, but there is an equipment requirement on there that your equipment that on Part 95 needs to be certified for Part 95. So when you go buy a bubble pack GMRS radio for Midland, those are certified for Part 95 use. This Motorola I got here, this Radius CP200,
Yep.
Part 90. This would be a beautiful GMRS radio. I mean, nice, light, and it's durable. I could throw this at the brick wall and probably knock a brick out of it. But I can't legally use that for Part 95 GMRS, unfortunately.
Nice.
So, but yeah, Part 97, we can, in amateur radio use, we can use any radio basically. So if I want to use this CP200, it's a Part 90 radio. For amateur radio use, that is absolutely okay. Same thing with these XTSs and XTLs that you've been programming on here.
Yeah.
Great use for them because they're not you can't use them in public service anymore. All the police departments, fire departments, county departments, they're all going to 800 megahertz truncated, encrypted, all that, which these older Motorola radios can't do. So
Yeah. Oh
which
man.
goes along into ties in with your what did you say earlier? Drawing a blank. Amateur radio needing to evolve a little bit more.
Yep.
So
Yep.
getting into these cool digital modes that are tested and proven and true.
Yep.
You know.
Oh man. I was just trying to check the stream on my phone. I happened to notice that my lower third wasn't working,
Oh yeah, no, I don't see that at all.
so I was trying to see what else was broken.
Is the audio even working? I think it is.
It should be.
Yeah.
That's good. At least that works.
I mean, we could go without the video too, and I'd be all right with that.
Yeah.
But I know earlier this week you brought up the new Yaesu FTM 500.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that, Al?
Oh my goodness. So,
Let's do the pros first. Let's talk about the pros first.
okay. So, I'd have to say the pros. They fixed some things that I really didn't like about the 400, and I have the 400 still, but they fixed some things that really bugged me about the 400, and that is, with the 400, your microphone connected to the RF deck instead of the control head. So if you wanted to remote mount your RF deck, which you had to, because the control head didn't actually mount to the RF deck, it was permanently split mount. Unless you mounted your RF deck somewhere where your microphone cord would reach, you had to run a separate cord, which they didn't provide. So you either had to buy something or make something. And so that was a massive pain. You also then had to run a speaker cable because the speaker is in the RF deck. So that was also a pain. They fixed that with the 500. Not only is the speaker in the control head, but the microphone also attaches to the control head. So it's an actual, honest to goodness remote mount now,
That's awesome.
Which is fantastic. I do like the smaller form factor control head, and it looks like they've kind of revamped the control interface. It reminds me of the 710 that I have. Which is great because, I mean, I'm picky enough to where I like the 500 in that it would match my 710. But I can't justify the price of the 500 over the 400 because there just hasn't been a lot of innovation, I guess. Yaesu is really pushing the AESS system on it, the acoustic enhanced speaker system. It's basically just two speakers. There's one in the control head and one in the RF deck on it. It's the same thing the 710 has. It's just the 710 has a speaker in the radio itself, and then there's an external speaker that you attach to it, and you basically have a balance knob or balance setting that you can switch from left to right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So basically, you're just adjusting the delay.
Right.
Of the sound hitting you from each speaker.
Yeah, and you can change, like, I think you can change, like, if you want certain frequencies, the higher frequencies go to this speaker versus the other one.
Okay.
I didn't really mess with it too much on the 710 because I mounted mine in my vehicle for mobile, and it just isn't room for the external speaker. It was, it just took up too much room. But I did play with it in the shack for a while with that speaker attached. I don't know. I guess I didn't see there's too much highs in it. I guess I like a lower, fuller sound.
You like the radio broadcast.
I like the broadcast sound.
AM radio, listening to a baseball game.
Yep, exactly. And you just don't get that out of that external speaker. I have it mobile mounted in my truck, and I have the audio output set up to where I can switch my truck stereo over to auxiliary and have the radio audio piped into the truck stereo.
Okay.
So
how's that sound?
It sounds really good.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does sound really good. And I can turn that output on or off. So if I want the speaker and the radio to work like a normal speaker, I can do that too.
Okay.
So, which is nice in like really staticky, high noise level situations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was gonna ask, since I don't have never did have an FTM 400, was there built-in GPS on that or no?
yes.
Okay, I was gonna
Yeah.
say I see that the 500 has a built-in GPS.
Yeah, the 400 had built-in GPS. It worked really well. So the 500 also has something that kind of irritated me. When this thing runs in scan mode, and you can have as many channels in your scan list as you want. So for those who are asking questions, having some heartburn that the public safety gear can only handle, 15 channels in your scan list. You can put as many channels in your scan list as you want with the Yaesu ones, but bear in mind it's going to take you 30 minutes to get through it if you load it up. But the thing I really didn't like about it is when you're in scan mode, all your channels they're flashing across the screen as it's scanning through them in real time. So you can't read any of them because they're going by so fast.
Yeah.
And it's super distracting when you're trying to drive. So
I can imagine, yeah.
because if that's off down, like I kept it like out of my direct line of sight, it was down to my periphery. It's always catching your sight, and it irritated me.
Yeah, because it'll zoom past and you'll see like 9-4 flash for a second.
Yeah.
Like, wait, was someone on there?
Right. Yep.
Am I deaf? Did I not hear that?
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like the commercial stuff just doesn't do that. It scans in the background, and whatever channel you have selected with your channel knob is what it stays on.
Yeah.
The display anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a bit annoying, but it physically looks a lot nicer than the 400 did. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
I haven't had one to play with, in person. I don't know that I'm going to get one. I probably won't because, like I said, for the price, there just isn't enough innovation over the 400 for me to do it.
Yeah. So was the 400, was that, did that have VHF and UHF as well?
Yeah, that was dual band. So it could do. Yeah, I think you can only listen to two bands at once. So you could. Let's see, how could you do that? You could set up both, I think, for VHF, or both for UHF, or one for UHF and the other one for VHF, or you could kind of configure it different ways.
Okay.
It did have Wires X on it, the Yaesu digital mode. So does the 500. It had built-in APRS, which is nice.
Yeah, I remember a couple times you and one of the other local hams were APRS, and when we were out doing one of our portable days.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun to mess around with.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would spend $650 to buy a radio to do that. I don't know. I live in a bigger city now. Omaha's 500,000 people. And,
Yeah.
I'll pull up the APRS app or rs.if. Just the live map, and the amount of. Right now there is one vehicle driving around Omaha with APRS.
Yeah, there's.
So really, unless you have a group, a group of people that you can say, hey, we're going to use this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see the use for it, but I know I could see it being used during storm chasing, storm season, stuff like that.
I tried up here. I think you were still up here when I tried that.
Yeah, but then you get out in the country and you don't have any eye gates.
Right.
To relay the your station data back. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no fun. But so I don't know. It's for the price. There isn't enough innovation there. It's still only 50 watts. You're still hard limited to amateur bands. Like you couldn't take it into the business band if you wanted to.
Right.
I really, so this is kind of a personal preference on my end, but I don't like being software limited to what bands I can't operate. You know what I mean?
Right.
I get that my XTL my VHF XTL can't operate in the UHF band because it wasn't intended to. The hardware is VHF.
Right. It's hardware limited.
Right.
Yes.
It's hardware limited. There's no amount of software is going to make it operate in UHF. but I have the ability to operate in the entire VHF band on it.
Right.
So, 136 to 174,
Yeah.
which is perfect. Yes, it does mean you have to take on a bit more personal responsibility and know that you can't transmit legally on most of that. So,
Right.
unless you
But-
have either a business band license or you have written permission from the frequency license holder to operate on that frequency.
Exactly.
So,
I.e., your fire department, police department.
yeah, if you're
etc.
gonna have one of these like let's say you're on a volunteer fire department and you have one of these radios in your vehicle, because this is what I do. You still have to have permission from the chief to use that in your vehicle, and then he's got to go to,
He's most likely got to go to the county or
Yeah.
state, depending on who owns the
right,
repeater system.
Yeah.
I know it's different for different areas.
right. So you just, you got to go up the chain and figure out how you can do this appropriately, because transmitting illegally, especially on public safety bands, will land you in hot water real quick.
Yes, I know. There's a lot of times in amateur radio where we transmit out of band. I don't know how many times I've been out, set up portable on HF, 20 meters, and you're scrolling around. And, all right, I'm gonna call CQ, and you look at your display and you're like, oh yeah, I'm in band,
Yeah,
but you're actually in, 20 meters instead of 7. Oh my goodness.
I've had one of those where
40, yeah.
I was
Yeah, all
off.
of a sudden you're out of band by 5 kilohertz or whatever, and
I was operating. Yeah, well, I was mobile, and I was operating, and I had pushed a button on my microphone without realizing it, and had switched to a memory channel, and so I was way out of band,
yeah,
and I had keyed a couple times before I realized what was going on. So because I was getting the high SWR warning, because I had my Tar Heel 2 or Little Tar Heel 2, so it was tuned for the frequency I wanted to operate on. So when I pushed that button, it was no longer tuned. So
it did not like that.
it didn't like it, no. So, but
yeah, so that's a big thing with these public service radios, older public service radios, these Motorola's and
yeah, I did want
Harris's and whatnot. You just got to make sure, one, you're following the law.
yeah,
Two, if you're an amateur radio operator and you're going to use these radios, you should know, hey, don't transmit outside of the amateur radio band.
right.
Your radio will transmit outside of there.
Yes, it will.
And if you do get in trouble saying, oh, I didn't realize I was outside of the band, it doesn't work for you.
It's too bad.
Because you physically had to go in and program this radio.
Right.
So,
Right. And I know a lot of people like to do this unaffiliated trunking scanning. You can, so if you set your radio up to interface with trunking, even unaffiliated, you can still transmit. Should you transmit on a trunking system, they will pinpoint your location very quickly, because you have multiple sites listening. Even on a standard VHF system, if it's got a voter set up on it, then they're going to nail down your location real quick. So
100%, yeah, because they're going to get a signal strength on each of those repeaters.
Yep. And all I got to do is go back in the log and look at it. So
yeah.
So just be forewarned that they are watching that stuff. So it's nothing to play around with.
Yeah, especially when it comes to public service. Especially if you're interrupting
Oh yeah.
an emergency, they will, throw the book at you.
There are provisions for that. Immediate threat to life, I think, or something like that. It's this. You have to have explored every other means of communication.
Right.
If you have a
can't
cell
just-
phone, if you have a cell phone, let's say you're you're not on a volunteer fire department or whatever, but you happen to have one of these radios and you come across a crash, you're the first one on scene or whatever. It is still very illegal. It's still illegal for you to pick up your radio and transmit on whatever county dispatch you're on and call for help if you have a cell phone. If you've got a cell phone, you had better use that cell phone.
100%.
So, there's there's caveats with any of that. There's you've seen it. I don't know how many times you see these videos of a highway patrolman or a deputy sheriff or whatever. He gets injured or something, and someone uses the radio in his car to call for help. That's acceptable.
Yep.
You're doing what you can.
Or
because honestly,
the cop's radio's on his body, and you just
the radio's on his body. It's not your equipment; it's the county's equipment. So I mean, you're probably not going to get in trouble for that. So,
right.
Oh man, I did want to touch on this. I mentioned it earlier. Public safety grade equipment only having, is it 15 or 16? I can never remember. 16 channels in a scan list. That's been brought up many times in the comments section on my videos. Why only 16 channels in a scan list? And I've answered a couple times. I need to do a video just on this, I think. But while I don't know the official reason why that is, I suspect it has to do with a couple reasons. You're not typically using that many channels in public safety. You may have, maybe 50 channels programmed into that radio. But, for in the life of an officer in a city, they're probably going to be, their radio's probably never going to come off of the main dispatch channel that they're on. It might get switched over to a tactical channel if they end up in a situation or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a handful of channels, and your scan list really only needs to handle, maybe 5 channels at the most. I guess and that depends. Bigger cities probably have more or whatever, but it's not going to be much. You could probably count them on 2 hands, I would bet. The other thing is, the more channels you add to a scan list, the longer it takes for that radio to cycle through that entire list. So the more likely you are to miss a transmission if it's, if channel 1, if dispatch comes over and starts talking, but your radio is off busy scanning channel 256, you're not going to hear it.
Right.
So, unless you've got a really wild priority channel set up, you're just not going to hear it. So
I'm curious, what radios were you only allowed to have 16 channels in a scan list?
The XTLs and XTSs.
Really?
Yeah.
I
So
almost could have sworn on my 2500 XTS 2500 I've had more.
So there is a way around this, and I brought this up before. It takes a little bit of planning. You got to plan out your code plug that you're going to put into this thing. Organize your channels by group or by zone. Let's say, and you can have as many scan lists as you want. No limit on that. It's just 16 channels per list.
Okay.
So with each zone, you can, with each personality. So your scan list is assigned by personality. You assign a personality to a channel or channels that you have in your channel list, and then all your channels are organized into zones. So let's say you have I'm going to use my air quotes, a local zone. You're to and from work, you're in town, you're going to get groceries or whatever. This is the majority of the channels you're going to be using. You have that in your local group, and so your scan list probably will reflect the same, 5 channels. Maybe it's the local repeater, or 1 or 2, 2 or 3 local repeaters, because you're never going to be in range of all of them at the same time. At least up here, anyway. I guess in a bigger city, you can be in range of multiple repeaters.
Right.
But you're going to have your main ones. And then your next zone could be, in my case, my next zone would be like the Fargo area. Like if I got to take on a trip to Fargo, I'm going to set up in that next zone all the stuff I might use when I'm in Fargo. You know, and my
Right.
scan list would
Yeah.
reflect that.
Yeah, so I kind of had my radios set up that way when I was up in Minnesota.
I have.
I would travel to southern Minnesota a lot, so I would have a scan list for the greater Grand Forks area, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got outside of Fargo, I'd flip over to another zone where I'd hit Fergus Falls, St. Cloud, all the way down to the Twin Cities and south.
Yep.
And as I traveled, that was a route I traveled all the time.
Yep.
You know, the same route. It's not like I was gonna. If I was going to Duluth or something, then I'd be, you know, out of luck.
Right.
Unless I went and reprogrammed. But
I mean, that's what I mean. It takes a bit of planning. I mean, like I said, you can have as many zones as you want too.
yeah. See, I was looking in the zone channel assignment, not the scan list. I'm like, I have way more than 16.
Yeah,
but
you
that's in the zone channel. I realize now it's 15 on my
15. That's what it is. Yeah.
XTS 2500.
Yep.
It doesn't even give you the 16th one.
No. So I think the most I have in a scan list is 5 channels.
Yeah.
My Skywarn channel, my Skywarn zone, that's where I have my priority scan set up.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the local main repeater is the channel I'm always on. Unless I get put out into a different group or whatever, I'll switch over to like a simplex channel that we're using between us. But the net control repeater, A is in my scan list, but it's also my priority channel. So regardless of what other channel I'm on, if that net control station keys up, the radio switches over.
Right.
So and then I also have the talkback set up. So as long as I push that PTT within 10 seconds, I can talk back without the scan dropping.
Okay. That's
So-
nice. Then you're not fumbling to switch to channel 4.
Right. Exactly.
You know, when you're sitting on 16.
Yep.
So.
You know, it helps to make sure you name your zones and channels. Keep it brief but descriptive. You know, it gets a little more trickier with the XTSs because you're limited to 2 characters for your zones. So
On the XTS, so you can change that. I think let me see I have my CPS up right now. Display.
you can change.
So your
change
text configuration, you can adjust your channel text, but you can only have 12 characters total.
for the
So
channel.
you can
Yeah.
have your zone. You can have your zone for 1 character, and 11 characters of channel.
Okay.
You can go to 2 characters of zone with 10 characters of channel.
Oh.
3 characters of zone and 9 characters of channel.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can shift where that division is, but
Yeah.
you're only allowed the 12 characters
Okay.
total.
Interesting. Learn something new every day.
So yeah, there's more that you can, you know. Like me, I have OMA set for the Omaha area.
Yeah.
That's my zone for this area. I've got a zone still set for up north, and then one for where my family's at. So
Yeah. And I can also the XTL that's in my truck. I have the VIP set up on it, vehicle interface port.
Okay.
So, for instance, like if I'm standing outside my vehicle, if I'm trying to record, you know, weather events or whatever, and I'm standing outside the vehicle, and net control station keys up, I have a soft key programmed on my radio. If I'm going to get out, I'll push the button, which enables this feature. So when I get out, if net control keys up, it will flash the high beams of my truck. So
that's cool.
and then, you know, obviously I can get back in and operate on the radio again. But It's kind of a neat feature, I guess. So it does have some input and outputs for the radio. You can take, some input signals, give you some output controls. So it's kind of fun to play with.
Yeah.
It's not as functional as like the Harris is for input output, but it's still pretty good. What we're talking about? I think we were talking about scan lists. Yeah, we were talking about scan lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's why, like I think that's the two main reasons why you're limited to that many channels. Is that it's just not needed, and
Right.
and B, it keeps your cycle time low, so you don't miss transmissions. It seems like it's kind of unique to the ham radio world that you want to have 500,000 channels in your scan list. I don't need to scan the entire VHF band.
Yeah, I don't need to scan the entire state of Minnesota when I'm sitting in one part of the state.
Right.
There's no use of scanning frequencies that I definitely will not even be using.
Right. So, yeah, even when I was running the ham grade stuff, I always kept my scan list really short, just for that reason, because it just really cranks up the cycle time. And some of the stuff, like, man, the early Yaesus were so slow going through their scan lists.
Yeah.
So, I think that the XTL probably has the fastest scan cycle time I've come across. It's between that or when I've got a commercial ICOM radio that was just ridiculously fast for scanning. But I don't remember what model that was though. It's the one that Matt had in his car that gave him the Matt-like audio.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But that one has an insanely fast scan rate too. The M7100, like I said, since you can run the dual RF deck on it for dual band, you can do some really wild stuff with the scan list on that. So.
Oh, I'm sure. So you could probably go from UHF to VHF and back and forth.
It effectively, so if you're running a single, I guess even if you're running a dual control head, I guess it doesn't really matter. But the control head or heads will treat both RF decks as if they're one. It's totally seamless.
Really?
So if you have a channel list, you can have a VHF channel 1, UHF channel 2, VHF channel 2, or channel 3. And as you're scrolling through your channels with your channel knob, it just switches between the RF decks,
that's so cool.
Totally seamlessly.
Yeah.
You also can program a soft button on there to push where you can manually switch between the two. But
when it does it seamlessly, what's the point?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I never bother with that. I set up my channel lists and my scan lists and just let it do its thing.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep in mind with a lot of this public safety stuff, like especially with the M7100s being able to run dual band like that. The M7100s put out 120 watts. The VHF or the UHF. You can get the 50 watt ones. But in the area where I live, I mean, if you're not running 120 watt, the high power deck, it's sort of pointless.
Yeah.
But so your diplexer has to be able to handle that. Your antenna has to be able to handle that. And I'm not joking, most amateur radio antennas that you get from like DX Engineering and stuff like that can't handle 100 watts.
I was gonna say it's not gonna work out very
right
well.
You will burn the coil out right quick, fast, and in a hurry. So you're gonna have to find like a MaxRad antenna or something like that, or a Motorola antenna that can handle that kind of power. And then along with that, it takes some restraint when, like, if you go through like the McDonald's drive-through, not to key up there on high power, because you can cause damage.
Yeah.
Don't do it next to ATMs.
100 watts.
Yeah.
100 watts right into their
I'm pretty
their little headsets that they're using.
I'm pretty sure I've killed an ATM from doing that. So, but yeah.
So I used to have a Tate. What was it? A 9100 mobile, 100 watt output.
Yeah.
Well, it had the 100 watt power amp on it. and I made sure that I had a soft button programmed so I could kick it down to low power.
Yep.
Because
I have the same. I do
really,
the same thing.
when you're in the same town that the repeater's in,
You don't need 110
you
watts.
don't need to be pumping 100 watts
Right.
into the radio.
No,
yeah,
because
the repeater's going to handle it because they're made to.
Right.
You know, well, I should say, as long as they're running, Motorola Quantars or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were built to handle, receiving that much power. But
Yeah. The Quantars or the Harris Master 3s,
yeah,
Master 2s. It is kind of sad to think. I shouldn't say sad, but that there's still tube-driven repeaters out there, and they have the voice ID and the oh god, I don't want to talk about that. It just gets my blood pressure up.
or they still ID without having the ID being
With a tone on it.
without a tone on it.
Yeah, at 2 words a minute.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have my UHF repeater and my VHF one when it goes to do the Morse ID. So all the radios are either digital or analog, obviously, but they're all running tones or NAT codes or whatever. When it goes to do the Morse ID, it drops to 5 watts and transmits with no tone. So
Oh yeah, you transmit with no tone
Right.
because
my radios are looking for a
radios
tone.
have a receive tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That or you could just do it on a different tone too.
yeah, you can do it on a different tone, or I do it with no tone. That way, if someone's running without a tone, they're going to hear it. Because
True.
so I don't know why some hams like to hear that tone, the Morse ID. I can't fathom why, but
I don't know. I don't even scan the local repeaters around here. I bet you if I turn my 2500 on
Well,
right now,
I mean it's
you would just hear, all you would hear is every single repeater in town just
IDing.
Morse all day long. It's like people just key it up just to hear it.
So the 941 in town, people do it. Like they'll kerchunk it. It'll Morse ID. It's like I'm guessing they think they're just seeing if it comes back to you. Like it's still there, making sure your radio works or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like if people could just get in the habit of just, if you want to check your radio, just pick it up. You push your button, N0 ZFD testing. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Because after you load off, you're still going to hear the tail on the radio.
Yeah.
On the repeater.
I actually set mine up to not have a tail.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as soon as you release the button, it's gone. So I like having the repeater set up in such a way that it's just invisible to the
Right.
radio user.
Yep.
So it takes a little bit of setting up to make it work like that, but once it does work like that, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I also have my VHF, my UHF repeaters are in the other, obviously, at my house in the same room. But I have them set up where, so I've got 2 separate channels for these repeaters in my radio, and they use different tones for the same frequency. And I do that because let's say I'm running on the VHF one, and the person I'm trying to reach is happens to take, like, let's say it's my daughter and she's got the UHF radio.
Yeah.
I can switch to the second channel with a different tone, and then when the repeater sees that different tone, it enables the GPIO pins, so it turns it into a crossband. It interfaces with the UHF.
No way.
Yeah, and
That's cool.
and it works in the opposite direction too. So you can get to the VHF side from the UHF like that.
Okay.
So, and it's surprisingly handy how that works. I had built a custom cable to make it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was pretty excited to get that to work like that.
Just automated. You just flip to channel 2, and
Just
it's still
flip to
the same
channel 2,
frequency,
yeah.
Just a different tone.
Yeah.
When the repeater hears that tone, it's like, oh, flip the GPIO, and
Yeah,
your UHF is picking it up.
Yeah, it just, all it does is it closes the COR, carrier operated relay.
Yeah.
I think it pulls that, if I remember right, it pulls that line high, and then obviously you have your audio out and your audio in.
Yeah.
Lines interface between the 2 repeaters, and they're just diplexed into the same antenna. So
Oh, that's so cool.
I run it through. I have 2 duplexers and a diplexer. So
Okay. The diplexer is for
both bands.
both bands.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that
Cool.
works pretty well.
It's awesome.
Oh man, it's getting dark
I suppose
outside.
it is. We're coming up on 10 o'clock. If we want to make it less than an hour.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get an FTM 500, but I've gotten spoiled with my public safety gear. I don't know that I'll go back to the ham grade stuff. And once
I was
again,
just gonna say-
I'm not ham grade to me doesn't mean not as good. It's just it's made for a different purpose.
Right. Yep. No, I totally agree. I picked up a what is it? This 2490R, I think is what it is. Just straight VHF, 80 watts.
Yeah.
Nice little radio, just straight analog. There's no digital, no nothing.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, that was the other thing I want to talk about. That came up in one of the comments about public safety versus amateur gear, front panel programming. For me, okay. So first of all, yes, you can do front panel programming with public safety grade gear. So long as you have a full keypad, either on the radio itself or on your microphone.
yeah.
It can be done. But Motorola was like, just program it with a computer. It's easier.
Yeah,
So
I've
they gave
never-
it the option, but it really is easier just to do it with a laptop or a computer or whatever. Just plan ahead. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I've never played with the FPP on a Motorola, but
FPP
the
on a
stuff
Motorola,
I've seen,
it's pretty
the stuff
clunky.
I've seen is ridiculous.
It's pretty clunky. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be fair, it's no less clunkier than doing front panel programming on a Yaesu. So
Right. Yeah, no, my Yaesu I was just talking to you about, that's the only way I can program it, and it's horrible.
yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I can see the advantage of, let's say you're on a trip and you happen to forget a repeater or a channel or something like that.
And
You can-
that's the
you-
one repeater that everyone in that town
right.
uses.
Then yes, you can just key it in on the front of a amateur grade piece of equipment, and then you're on the air. Whereas with public safety, you can't do that unless you happen to bring a laptop with you, which I typically don't.
Especially your programming laptop.
Right? Yeah, because it's a Panasonic Toughbook, and it weighs a ton, and
Yep.
we're just not going down that road. So, but I don't know. For that one rare occasion, it's just not worth it. If I have access to my laptop or if I'm at home, it takes less than 5 minutes to add channels or take channels away. You know,
Right.
it's super easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's something unique to ham radio too, I guess, is wanting to program things from the front panel. And it's like you've got like a 2-inch display on it, or I guess in case of the 500, what is the
I think
size?
it's a 2.4.
2.4-inch display.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm just not front panel programming that thing.
Well,
I'm
and
just
it's
not.
a touch screen 2.4 inch.
Yeah, it's so-
my finger is going to fill up the whole screen.
Yeah.
Unless you have a stylus.
The 710 is got a much bigger display on it, and it's still hard sometimes to use the touch on it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, front panel programming I think is just way overrated. So, just say no.
Just say no.
Yeah, just plan it. I mean, seriously, just plan ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're going to go on a long trip, look at a map. What areas are going to be passing by? Pull up your repeater book. See what repeaters are in the area.
Yeah.
I mean, the XTL, I mean, I forget how many channels it can hold, 900 and something. You're not going to fill it up. You could drive all the way from here to Florida, have every repeater you want into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just do a little bit of mission planning. You'll be fine.
Exactly.
So, well, I guess that's really all I got. I guess we didn't do our what's on our bench segment. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's not much new here. I made a little bit of progress with my little Tar Heel 2 controller. I got the user interface just about wrapped up. And then now I got to move on to hardware. I got to model up a bracket to mount this thing in my truck in that little cubbyhole space, so it looks like it's meant to be there.
Okay.
So I imported the model from 4D Systems of the display I have, so I can build my bracket right off the model in 3D.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love when you can do that.
Oh, it's gold.
You don't have to sit there with a caliper and try measuring. Do I want to give it a little more space or not?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yep. So I might work on that a little bit this weekend. Although, I'm not sure how much time I'll get. I just got a motorcycle for my daughter, so she's going to want to be messing with that pretty much all weekend, I think. So.
That's awesome.
We'll probably,
I'm excited for you on that. That's just so cool.
Yeah, it's going to open up a whole new world for her having a bike. So.
Yeah, I know. So I had talked to you about getting Courtney a cart one of these days, and I asked her again tonight because we're planning on going down to the local dirt track next Saturday. Or no, tomorrow. We're planning on going to the dirt track tomorrow.
Nice.
And I asked her, I'm like, do you still want to race a go-kart? And she's like, yeah. Just all excited. My wife looked at me like, oh.
Oh man. I don't know. Even I have those moments like, what happens if she gets hurt or crashes or something like that? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen.
Yep.
It happened to me. So, but
I was gonna say it happened to me. I don't know how many times I've dumped a dirt bike or whatever.
But I mean, you learn from it. It's like this time, like this is the first time that she's stood a motorcycle up by herself, and even though it's the right height, it's right at the she's up on her tiptoes to stand it up. Yep. But she got on it, stood it up off the kickstand, and the bike just kept going. She just tipped over the other way. So it's like, well, get that out of the way.
Yeah.
The first drop. So
brush that off.
And it's like, it's not like, so what if you drop it? It's an old bike. It's not like we just repainted it or anything.
Exactly.
So
and even if you did, whatever.
Yeah, I think I'm going to freshen it up enough to ride it this year, so she can learn, and then maybe over the winter we'll put some work into it and pretty it up. And
that's cool.
But she's excited, so that's awesome.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we're officially at the hour mark.
All right.
So, it has been fun.
Yes, it has. We'll do it again.
Yeah. Fortunately, we didn't have any internet dropouts, no power outages.
We made it through.
So I know a lot of our fellow hams out there aren't so lucky, especially in the Pacific Northeast, or not Pacific Northeast. Good Lord. I'm so tired. Anyway, up in the New England area, we'll say, they've got some epic flooding going on up there right now. So our thoughts and prayers are with them. So.
Yep, definitely.
And with that, I think it's time. So, my name is Alan, N0ZFG.
My name is Chris, KE0JHC.
Excellent. One of these times we're going to get this right.
One of these times.
Yeah.
We'll just practice it live until we get it right.
Exactly.
We'll say, yeah, that was it.
Awesome. All right. Well, it was good talking to you again, Chris.
All right. You too.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
We'll see you. N0ZFG out.
We now return the frequency back to normal amateur operations. We thank you for your patience and your understanding. 73.